Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Paramita and I heartily welcome you to my channel Paramita PM. If you are new to my channel, then I would request you to go through the content of my channel, look at the videos, and if you really find those videos helpful and if they really heighten your interest, then do like it, share it, and do not forget to subscribe to my channel. And most importantly, please turn on the notification bell button so that you get notified whenever I upload any new videos on my channel. So now, without any further ado, let's get into the lecture. In this audio lecture, we shall discuss the significance of Chapter 1 of the essay A Room of One's Own by Virginia Woolf. A Room of One's Own was based on lectures that Woolf delivered at two women's colleges, and these lectures were read out in October of 1928, and later on Woolf revised them for publication the following year. When Woolf delivered these lectures, Woolf was actually at the height of her powers. So, in late October of 1928, when she went to Cambridge with Leonard and Vanessa, she gave her lectures at Newnham and Girton. Virginia Woolf was then 46 years old. This, or we can say, let's say, this novel, A Room of One's Own, which is considered to be an essay, begins with the word but, which is really an unconventional way of starting. And it also emphasizes that what is to come is actually going to be unconventional, contrary to our expectations. And at the same time, it suggests that one comes to this discussion, like as if in the middle of things. It seems as if a conversation has been going on and we are just entering in the middle of it. So we find Woolf setting out with the word but to engage a topic which received very little attention, or rather very little serious attention in it. And the topic is women and writing. Woolf suggests that the subject she is going to talk about is too vast for her to explain within a short time period. So she comes up with a highly contrarian idea, and the basic premise of A Room of One's Own is that women must have the security and privacy of their own room and their own money, which means that women should have financial independence and their own privacy in order to write. And in this first chapter, we find that Woolf focuses on the reason as to why a woman needs a room of her own and solitude, and not allowing the world to enter in. And these conditions are really necessary for creation. And then she says that she focuses on how the universities discriminated against women, because she found that at the lawn, library and dinner, the narrator is not allowed to enter. She is denied admission there. And not only that, she is also given accommodations which are quite inferior in quality compared to the ones which are given to men. Later on, we shall find Woolf, exploring more and more on, she will be exploring more what effect this actually effect it does cast on the mind. But we can already see, we can see that these obstacles already damage the mental process. It is a recognition that which she comes across, that she is considered to be, and since she is regarded to be a second class citizen, it makes Woolf put more emphasis on women's need for money and their privacy to write. We can say that this room of one's own, we can see it as a kind of cultural odyssey where we experience like someone who is moving past different landmarks towards a settled place. And in this case, we find Woolf proceeding towards a settled opinion. This book seems to have an expressive technique where we find Woolf actually creating a fictional narrator who will relate like how she came to have certain views, and this is also an activity of women and fiction. So in A Room of One's Own, Virginia Woolf appears to be a woman who makes fiction. She also creates a fictional woman, Mary Baton. And Woolf says that this name is because she will tell how she came to have a view about women and fiction. And women and fiction, Woolf disagrees. Woolf says that women and fiction is actually a subject, that raises all kinds of prejudices and passions. And then she says that to speak about like women and fiction, it means to speak about certain women writers, famous women writers. But we find that Woolf does not refer to any, she doesn't restrict herself to actual writers, but she considers an imaginary writer named Mary Carmichael. And even she comes up with an imaginary would-be writer who is Shakespeare's sister. So we find that as she proceeds, we find that the narrator's main premise is wealth. And it is repeatedly mentioned that wealth is a very, very ingredient for creativity. And the men she comes across finds that they have very few obstacles on their path, and they are not at all concerned with they're not at all concerned with petty things or problems, and they are even allowed to discuss higher ideas at their luxurious lunch, which women are again deprived of. So here it is focused that for that generations of men, whether it is whether C or class, and whether even if they do not have money, as said, both aristocratic and they are very wealthy, they have fed money back into the institutions in order to keep their comfort and position intact. So again, we come to understand that money is a very, very important factor to get access to every field. Because for men who are wealthy aristocrats, what they do, they simply feed the institutions with their money in order to maintain their comfortable life as well as their position. While if we look at the condition of women, we find if they have few of these luxuries, they are rather deprived of these luxuries. As far as food is concerned, even there we find this discrimination. And this represents that greater inequalities which women have endured for centuries at the hands of society and nature. In fact, a few women, are wealthy. They are independent financially, with which they can enjoy their creativity, their creative lives. which allow them to have such activity, to have such activities in their life. Rather, so instead, what happened to women, that since they were not financially independent, they did not have enough wealth to feed their creativity, to distinctive position in the society. They were given the responsibility of bearing children and raising children. This was something they were saddled with. This responsibility was imposed upon them. And here the narrator hints that such conditions do impair women's creative abilities. While talking about women and fiction, the narrator says that it could mean that women and what they are like. And this actually refers to women in general, like what women are like, what kind of nature do they possess. And it may it might appear to be something very interesting to a woman who writes that women are like, they affect the fiction they create. And in the course of this essay, Woolf suggests that women have a separate nature which affects how they should write, due to the specific or distinctive, let's say, quote unquote, shape of their brains. And we also find Woolf claiming superiority for those women who are able to claim right without being restricted by male originated literary style, which means that they have their own way of writing, and they do not conform to the pattern, or they do not conform to the literary style that is adopted by male writers. And then we come across a third interpretation for women and fiction, which may mean that women and the fiction that is written about them. So the first interpretation was when she is embarking to talk about women and fiction, that women and what they are like about their name is like women who who are able to come up with their own literary style and without being restricted by, as I said, male originated literary style. It may mean that, or how they affect the writing style. And thirdly, the third interpretation could be that fiction that is written about them. So how here we find that the focus completely shifts. It is directed to women as the subject of fiction. So now the question that comes to our mind is, what sort of fiction is created women? Now, so since most of the fictions were created by men, so naturally the stuff would be different. The stuff would be different. Throughout this text, throughout this essay, Woolf will we find her often considering these different interpretations as personal experience, where she gives a description of two imaginary mills, like one that she came across at a women's college and the other at a men's college, and which depicts again that how these educational how these educational institutions discriminate between men and women. And even at the women's college, we find that the narrator says that dinner was not good. It simply consisted of plain soup, beef, cabbages, and potatoes. Okay. While the situation at the men's college was completely different. There was, partridges, sole, with all the retinue of sauces and salads. So here also we can see, when it comes to food, we can also see the discrimination between that was done between men and women. So Woolf suggests that good food and drink, they accompany rational discourse, and they are emblems of the material conditions that support education. So without good, possible for someone, okay, to have a creative mind. So the difference that we see between the two meals, okay, it symbolizes the difference between the educational opportunities that have existed for men and for women. And these differences did have a very notable impact on the capacity, on the capability of an individual to produce fiction, to write fiction. And later on we find that Woolf says that formal education, has always been the position of great writers. And as far as women history, if we look at, if we explore the history of women, we shall find that women were always excluded from most formal education. So the narrator again observes that women would naturally have been, the women had been expected, to take an interest in the education of their sisters, and to create colleges for them. Would take interest in the education of their sisters, and they would also create colleges for them. But women were unable to do so. Why? Because they typically, although women, they had interest in education, but they lacked the means. They did not have the necessary independent means, which they did not have. As I said, they did not have the necessary independent means, okay, to to pursue their dreams, to pursue their interest. So we find that the first chapter is concluded with the thought about how unpleasant it is to be locked out, and how it is worse perhaps to be locked in. So women were deprived of every opportunity. So the major premise of a room of one's own, which focuses on the need of financial independence for women, is so very important. And this first talking about, with the thought about the safety as well as the prosperity of the one sex, that is women, and the poverty and insecurity of the other. Of the one sex means, it refers to, when we talk about safety and prosperity, so it refers to the prosperity and safety of men, while poverty and insecurity of the other, which is related to women. And when there is and the presence of tradition as well as lack of tradition, both these have a good deal of impact on the mind. And we shall find that these thoughts will remain with the narrator throughout the book, as she goes on talking about the several aspects related to women and